İki panelimiz olacak biliyorsunuz. İlki Gençlerin Filantropiye Katılımı için etkili stratejiler başlığıyla gerçekleşecek. Bu panelin moderasyonunu ben yapacağım. Peki bize kimler katılacak? Elevate Children Funders Group Direktörü Sayın Heather Hamilton, Toplum Gönüllüleri Vakfı Genel Müdürü Sayın Ayşe Kırımlı ve Learning for Wellbeing Vakfı Yönetim Kurulu üyesi Sayın Maria Kova Orejas bizlerle birlikte olacak. Bütün bu kurumlar ne yapıyor? Gençleri nasıl, ne kadar dahil edebiliyorlar? Bunu konuşacağız. Bir ufak hatırlatma, panelimiz İngilizce olarak devam edecek. Türkçe dinlemek isteyen ve kulaklığını almayan misafirlerimiz varsa sahne hazırlanırken belki bir kere daha onların ellerini görebiliriz ama iyi görünüyor durum. Bir iki arkadaşım, misafirim burada görüyorum. Eğer yardımcı olabilirseniz. Sahnemiz hazır. O zaman değerli alkışlarınız sevgili panelistlerimiz için gelsin. Ben sözü onlara bırakmak için çok kısa sevgili panelistlerimizi tanıtacağım. Sonra da hemen hızlıca başlayacağız. After a brief introduction, we'll start. Kimler bize katılıyor biraz daha detaylı anlatmamız gerekirse. Daha önce kız çocuklarının erken yaşta ve zorla evlendirilmemesi için küresel ölçekte mücadele eden ve Sabancı Vakfı'nın da işbirliği içinde olduğu Girls Not Brides ağında yöneticilik görevlerini üstlenen Heather Hamilton, şu anda Elevate Children Funders grubun direktörlüğünü gerçekleştiriyor. 2022 yılında bu ağ tarafından fon verenler için çocuk ve gençlik katılım rehberi yayınlandı. Bunu niye söyledin Duygu diyeceksiniz. Çünkü fuaye alanında bu rehberin Türkçe özetine yine kare kodlar üzerinden ulaşabilirsiniz. Son derece faydalı olacağını düşünüyorum. Bir başka kıymetli konuşmacımız sevgili Ayşe Kırımlı 2021 yılından bu yana Toplum Gönüllüleri Vakfı Genel Müdürlüğü görevini yürütmekte. Özel sektörde 25 yılı aşkın bir deneyimle birlikte sivil toplum kuruluşlarında aktif görevler aldı Sayın Kırımlı ve 2011 yılından bu yana üniversiteli gençlere gönüllü kariyer koçluğu da yapıyor. Tabii ki sevgili Ayşe Hanım'a bakınca sahada beraber geçirdiğimiz hep o zamanı da düşünüyorum. Birazdan hep beraber konuşacağız zaten. Ve sevgili Maria Kova Orejas, çocuklar, gençler, ebeveynler ve çocuklarla çalışan profesyoneller için programlar geliştiren Hollanda merkezli Learning for Wellbeing Vakfı'nın yönetim kurulunda yer alıyor. Filantropi alanında 15 yıldan fazla deneyime sahip Maria, aynı zamanda Avrupa'da ve Birleşmiş Milletler düzeyinde filantropi alanında farklı kurullarda çalışma ve görevlerde bulundu. Dediğim gibi İngilizce olarak devam edeceğim sizlerin de izniyle ve sonrasında hep beraber değerlendireceğiz. Bugünün bu oturumun çok kıymetli çıktıları olduğunu biliyorum. Welcome all. Thank you so much for joining us today. I would like to start with Heather. Heather, could you please provide us some insight about the Elevate Children Funders Group and its mission? How do its members collaborate and contribute each other's efforts?
Great, thank you very much. Elevate Children Funders Group is an international group of funders from around the world who work on behalf of child rights and well-being. By funders, we mean people who are moving money and making grants. And this is everyone from small family foundations right up to large international endowed foundations. They work together on a common theory of change that by working together as funders, they can move more and better money for children. The outcomes for children will be improved if funders collaborate. So they collaborate in three ways, and that's assisted by us, the Secretariat, but Elevate really is its members. It is a network of members. So the first way that they work together is that they learn. They learn how to do their work better, so philanthropic practice, and they learn more about the issues and learn from each other. So they do that through dedicated learning journeys on issues like monitoring, evaluation, and learning for systems change. Doesn't sound incredibly interesting, but very important. And things like child and youth participation and trauma-informed grant making. The second way that they work together is that they work together to align their funding or move towards co-funding or joint funding. So there's a whole spectrum of ways that funders can align their funding to become more impactful. And so they do that through very simply sharing information about what they're working on in a member directory or on an online resource community. But we've also done things like develop joint toolkits, like our toolkit for child and youth participation, which was really driven by members and young people. Developing research reports, working groups on things like children in care or mental health. But we've even created some funds that have been spun off, like Ignite Philanthropy to End Violence Against Children, or a new initiative called What's Possible, which is members putting money into a pot for young people themselves to be giving out through participatory grant making. And then finally, they advocate together through joint sessions at international meetings, or co-authored blogs and articles, or things like a statement. We did a statement to the UN Human Rights Committee on Children in Care. So there's a whole range of ways that they work together. And what it really does is go beyond just grant making into real alignment for greater impact.
So I'd like to continue with the toolkit. I think it's one of your recent publications, right?
Yes, yes.
The name is A Funder's Toolkit for Child and Youth Participation. Could you share some of the key recommendations? So when implementing such a project, what are the initial steps that the funders should consider?
Fantastic. Yeah, first of all, listen to Nazra, because just do what she said. I'll build on that a little bit. So also I wanted to thank the Sabancı Foundation for translating the poster of the toolkit itself into Turkish. That's now available on our website, and I think they have some copies. But the first thing is to really make it meaningful. We're not just going for youth participation, right? Like, it can actually cause more harm than good if it's not actually meaningful, and meaningful to the young people involved. And what that means is to get away from tokenism and to really, really commit to shifting power to young people. To ask yourself really honestly at the beginning, how much control are you willing to give up? And to say, I'm willing to start small, to recognize there will be problems, to iterate, to learn, and to be informed by the young people. This is a process. It's not a product. The second thing is to get your leadership on board. So this is something that really requires executive leadership and board leadership to be successful, because you can run an entire youth process, and if you ask young people what they think and need and want, and it's ignored, you've just, again, done more harm than good. So there's some resources in the toolkit itself that show the evidence base, but what our members have found most useful is really just having young people talk to your leadership and board. They're the best advocates for themselves. So thirdly, really center inclusion and intersectionality. And by intersectionality, I mean recognizing that different people face different discriminations, and those discriminations are overlapping. They can face discriminations of race, gender, ableism, age, and making sure that you're drawing from across people with different experiences, and the outcomes will be better. And finally, don't limit yourself to youth-focused projects. As Nazra said, there isn't an issue in this world that young people aren't on the forefront of changing.
It's so important. After today's sessions, we'll have actually a roadmap, concrete solutions about how to move forward. So thank you so much, Heather. I'll have one more question for the second round, but now I'd like to continue with Ayşe now. Community Volunteers Foundation, TOG, as we know, is a significant civil society dedicated to empowerment of young people. Even I can talk about hundreds of examples that change millions of young people's life. But can you please give us an overview about TOG's mission, initiatives, and projects?
Sure. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to talk about Community Volunteers Foundation, or Toplum Gönüllüleri Vakfı in Turkish. Since its establishment in 2002, so almost 21 years passed, We are working for encouraging the social responsibility of young people, especially young people who are at the universities in all over the country, and we are empowering them by our scholarship and mentoring programs. Not only this, we are also giving some trainings to young people if they need it. And these trainings are mainly about the project development techniques, communication skills, as well as gender equality, human rights, and children's rights. So for the past 21 years, as you said, more than 1 million young people have worked together with us and created so many social responsibility projects. And almost we can say that 21,000 social responsibility projects have been created by young people up to now. And these projects are always in line with the Sustainable Development Goals set by the United Nations. Also, we are creating projects with some of the institutions, either in private sector or in the other NGOs. All these projects are always in line with the problems of young people in the country or in the world. The topics are about the youth employment and youth capacity building. Gender equality is one of the essential problems in all over the world, and peer bullying. We as community volunteers also take responsibilities during the disaster times. As we all know, we are living in such a country who unfortunately are witnessing so many disasters from time to time. As you know, we experienced a very big disaster on February the 6th. More than 11 cities were affected. Hundreds of thousands of people died, and many were wounded, either psychologically or physically. We as community volunteers, by our young volunteers, take actions during the disaster times. Some of the examples that I can give you is that we are quickly organizing a crisis desk. We work for the 8 warehouses and so on. As you know, we were together with you during September. We were in the region. We there witnessed so many different problems coming from the people who experienced this disaster. And then we, together with our young volunteers, decided to establish a sustainable project, and we built there the support centers. Actually, I do not want to talk about in detail, but later maybe we can talk about this. So in short, actually, young people are the core value, and they are just in the middle of everything for Community Volunteers Foundation. They are the decision makers, they are the creators, because they have such a potential. We believe that with the inspiration we receive from them, we can achieve everything. We can solve all the problems if we want to, but the most important part is the young people. In short, I can say this to you.
And as a journalist who witnessed what you have done in Hatay on many cities in Turkey, I know that you're being modest, but thank you so much for your great efforts. It means so much for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
And as a part of TOG's mission, you actively promote youth participation within the organization, as far as I know. Can you please give us some details about this participation mechanism?
Sure. As I said, young people, mainly the university students, are our core value. These people are at every layer of talk, at every layer of our foundation, which means that, first of all, I can share with you some of the participation mechanisms that we have in our organizations, but we have some mottos. Before that, I would like to mention about them. We say that led by young people, guided by adults. This is our main motto. So as you understand, the leaders are the young people, not the adults in our organizations. When we say this, our young volunteers say that we are here not to criticize, but to change. So we believe that the change in the world can only be achieved by the support, by the decisions of the young people. So the first participation mechanism is our board itself, the management board. Exactly the half of our board consists of young people. I mean the university students. They are the decision makers. They can participate all the decisions about the foundation strategy, foundation's financial and business plan, and everything. So they have the right to say. The second one is our youth council. Actually, youth council was started 21 years ago, which means in the first year of our establishment. It is organized and created by the young volunteers, young university students. And since then, we continue to organize our youth councils. What is youth council is? In these councils, our university students express their needs. First of all, they come together from different cities of Turkey. They come from 81 different cities of Turkey. Hundreds of students are come together. They express their needs, make their decisions, and prepare together for the new projects for the next years. We, as the professionals of our foundation, only support them. We are not involving during their decision makings. We are just supporting them. Thirdly, as I said, we are here to support the social responsibility projects of young people in all over Turkey. While doing this, they organize their projects in their localities. But some of the project groups decides that we want to make this project bigger, which means that we want to expand this project in all over Turkey or in some part of Turkey. And they call this action as national attacks. So by national attacks, they expand the feeling of social responsibility in other cities, in other universities where their peers are doing some other projects. So different projects come together and serve for the same purpose. If the purpose is to support children, they serve for children. If the purpose is to serve for youth, they work for youth by these national attacks. And peer education, while doing this, peer education is something essential for expanding the knowledge and experience of young people to other young people. They learn much, we experienced that, they learned much more easily, effectively, and quickly in the way of peer education. Another participation mechanism is we let them to represent Community Volunteers Foundation by themselves towards the local governments, local authorities by themselves, which means when they want to organize an activity or a project, they get all their permissions from the local governments by themselves. They represent talk by themselves. Or if they want some sponsorships, they go to the companies, either public sector or private sector. They get their sponsorships by themselves. So they have all the power, actually, because we believe that young people have their own power if we let them to do so, if we give them enough space, if we listen to them very carefully, and if we believe in them. This is very important. So I believe that, and we as Community Volunteers Foundation believe that, as you also said, 1/3 of our population consists of young people. So we have to ask the opinions of youth much more than before. We have to enable them to express their ideas, feelings. We have to believe in them, because we know that if we believe in them, they have all the energy, all the power to achieve anything they need. This is very important. Youth is not only beneficiary, but they should be a part of the whole.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Ayşe.
you.
It's so important to hear about the mechanism which is sincere and sustainable. Thank you so much. We'll have another question for the second round. So let's continue with dearest Maria. Could you please tell us about Learning for Wellbeing Foundation and its mission? What are the primary initiatives and the main activities?
Thank you. First, I think I would support anything that has been said up to now, and we would be in full agreement and alignment with that. I would like to go back, though, to the beginning of the day today when we were talking about multiple crises. I have been 20 years working in philanthropy, and I have been hearing about this multiple crisis for 20 years. And I was young before, so we have an issue. So there is something more that needs to be changed in order for that systemic change that everyone working in social issues wants to impact, right? So on the one hand, we really believe in intergenerational collaboration, not because it will find maybe the solution, it'll just make it better. So that societal new idea, response, the creativity that is needed, it needs to come through intergenerational approach. And in this respect, for example, we did a project this year called Common Ground, where we put a group of older and younger people together to go for political solutions, proposals for the new European Parliament, for example, in a very concrete way. But there is something more in our perspective, and is that for that collective change, we need to change something in the individual. We need to support something at the individual level. And so the way we approach the learning for well-being, it's something that you can learn, it's a process. So it can be guided, it can be taught. And we want to also, well-being, we interpret it also in a holistic way, so it's mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual, but not necessarily interpreted in a religious way. It's whatever drives you, whatever brings you purpose in life, for you to fulfill your unique potential in life. So our idea is that if I am better with myself and my needs are met, I will relate with you in a different way, and we may collaborate to find solutions that are bigger than our self-interest somehow. You know, that's the proposal. So for that, we work with the schools, but we would like children to unlearn a lot of the things that the school are teaching them, because children are losing creativity, curiosity in the school system. So we would like to preserve that thing that we call the core capacities. And the core capacities are human skills that we are all born with. They're innate. They're not complex, like problem solving or other complex life skills. They are simple, and we want them to be preserved. It so happened that UNICEF has validated our approach. So there is a report called What Makes Me? Core Capacities for Living and Learning that I will invite you to search. It's available. And also there is something that we like to teach not only children, but also the adults around them, so parents, teachers, that is called inner diversity. And it's something like, you know, you are born with an algorithm, and that is yours, and you need to learn how you function. The better you know how you function, the better you will be succeeding in everything that you want to do in life, even participation. Because it's not only to have young people participating, you want them to participate to their full potential, and you would also like to bring the best quality in their participation. But in a personal note, yes, I'm not speaking as the learning for well-being, I would like them to bring that change in the world so they don't repeat what we have done, and it's not that they start participating in the system and they perpetuate the system. So they're real agents for that societal change that we're all aiming at.
While you're talking, I thought about a quote from Bernard Shaw. He said once, I have to stop my education once I begin to go to school. I know it's Bernard Shaw, and it is kind of mean, but somehow it's true. So as you mentioned, in the foundation, you have many projects centered around child participation, youth empowerment, and also knowledge sharing. I think you're placing young people at the core of the process, and I think it's the key, because you have many young people on your board. So could you please tell us, how do you implement this approach?
Okay, so we have a board member here,
which we'll hear in the second panel of the day.
In the second panel. I must say that I can say it because the idea is not mine, but the idea is quite genius and revolutionary. If we are working for children, how can we, or young people, how can not we make them part of finding the solutions or the programs that work for them? I need to say that at the beginning it was quite of a shake, and also from a legal point of view it was complicated to put in place. There were many legal barriers, so, but I mean it's doable, it's feasible. It so happens that we have a very bright group of young people that have been getting older as we have been together in this mission. I would say, as I said before, it brings also a diversity to your board that is very refreshing, and it doesn't make it perfect. The dynamic in our board is not perfect. I'm sitting in different boards. I have never found a perfect board, but it just makes it better. That's the thing, you know? Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, as Voltaire was saying, something like that. It just improves it. So the reason why we do, you were talking about mottos, we also have, I think we would call it principles. Of course, we have like a legal principle could be that Article 12 of the Convention of the Children's Rights says that, you know, this is an obligation. But I think more from a pragmatic point of view, you cannot include, I mean, if you don't include as part of finding the solution the people that you want to help, that, you know, that starts really bad. We have, I think that there are a couple of resources that I would like to share with people for them to go and look. One is one toolkit that we did with Eurochild, that is the organization representing the rights of children in Europe. It's called We Are Here, a toolkit for participation. It's both for adults and children. It's for NGOs or any other partner who wants to work with who wants to do some participation. It's very concrete tools. They focus more on the process than on the outcome. And that is part of the approach of the Learning for Wellbeing. We focus a lot on participation as part of the process, less on the outcome. So for example, we support partners, other foundations or other NGOs that come to us, provided they have a group of adults and young people wanting to do some social impact. We help them to support in the process of the participation in an intergenerational way. So that's something we do with partners. We're also chairing the group in Filea of young people and children. So we initiated this report that has been mentioned already about how different philanthropic organizations work with children. And our approach is more that they help us in the different projects that we do. They are part of designing the program. So it's not necessarily that they are just consulted. They are part of defining it together with us. It takes more time, so that needs to be understood and considered. I would like to say maybe also something as an old representative in the discussions today. There have been a lot of discussions since the Article 12 of UN in '89 about effective participation, different models, different approaches. So there is a lot of literature already there. But our deep belief is that if you don't help that youth be empowered with those soft skills, they are less meaningful. So that's really something that I would like to share as a message, because it's not about having a right, it's about how you exert that right? Like being able to activate it, feel empowered to do it, understand it, and also having like the self-confidence and many other things to say my voice counts, which is not an evidence. It's like we sometimes give it for granted because it's written in an article somewhere. So that's my message.
Thank you so much, Maria. I think I'll need one more messages from all of you. I have a very short time, but I'd really like to hear some suggestions from you to the organizations who sincerely wants to do something about youth participation. Let's start again with Heather, please.
Great. I'm going to go a little meta on you here. And I'm going to say that we all need to start thinking about and working on our own adultism. And adultism is a term that we don't use very much. It's not common. We hear a lot about racism, classism, sexism, ableism, or even ageism, which is discrimination based on age. But in most places, that ageism, that means discrimination against older people. We rarely hear about the systemic inherent discrimination that young people face in our societies. Adultism is a belief that adults are better than children, are worth more than children, that their opinions are worth more than children, that they know better than children and youth. I mean, when I say children, it's children and youth. And that they have a right to make decisions about children without children's input. And it's everywhere. And I have to say that personally, I've been in the work world for almost 30 years. And I worked on international human rights, and I came to work for Girls Not Brides, which is the Global Partnership to End Child Marriage. I've worked for UNICEF. And it was only in the past couple years that I realized how adultist I was. I mean, I was like, yeah, young people, yeah, we need to include. I was a youth activist. I was out there saying, include us, listen to us, when I was 16. And I worked to transform an organization that I later worked for. And I became adultist because it's so prevalent. We don't think about it. But there's a flip side to it, and it's called childism. And it's this radical idea that children are full human beings that have the same inherent worth as adults. And childism demands that adults and people in power take into consideration the needs and perspectives of young people on the same merits as those of adults. And I think that's a key thing. Like in so much participation, it's like, oh, this is the young people's point of view, but it's the young people's point of view. It's not given the same merit or consideration as that of the adults in the room. And this isn't about taking power from adults. This is about sharing power. This is recognizing that we're all in it together. And it's not just child participation. This is a greater consciousness that we need to develop in ourselves, that the lived experience of children and young people is very different from that of adults. And all decision makers need to take that into account and to build around that.
I'll think about it. Thank you so much, Heather. Ayşe, same question.
My answer is that to increase the youth participation at all layers of everything in the world, different policies should be produced, and we should encourage the youth people to be in part of the decision-making process. And one of the important thing is that all these policies, which will be created by institutions, by governments, by authorities, by companies, all of them should be sustainable. This is very important. We shouldn't produce such type of things. We shouldn't make such type of things only because of it's a type of fashion or so, or it's a trend or so. Sustainability is very important. So creating policies is very important, and listening to them is very important. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Maria?
I would probably say just do it. Have fun, enjoy the process, learn, provide you keep a few things in mind that I come again to my permanent message, stay in the human, right? So sometimes you may not know those legalistic thing or those limitations, but there is, if you do things from the right space and with your heart, you're going to find the solution on how to be inclusive in the right way, right? So I'll give an example. We were talking about internally in the organization about participation with dignity. Mm-hmm. What does this mean? This means that as we were inviting young people, for example, you understand that someone, well, you know, he was invited to speak somewhere and he didn't have the right shirt. That it's just, you know, it was something that we maybe didn't think about it. But for this kid, it was not an evidence he didn't have like a shirt, and he wanted to look serious and look good, and so there was something about the dignity there that is a very easy thing to think about and to support. You just need to think in a more compassionate way, or just more, yeah, as I keep saying, like this human thing, you know? Or for example, we had kids participating in a conference, and then, so they were, it was not our conference, but we were there, and so the expenses were covered. Mm-hmm. But there were a couple of kids that they didn't have money to go after and just have like a drink with the others or something like that. So just, you know, have fun, try, do things, and keep also an open heart, and it will give you the right compass into how to integrate the youth participation.
Wow. Thank you so much for this inspiring and permanent principles and messages you're sharing. It's so important to think about how we can move forward together and with an open heart, as Maria said. So thank you so much for joining us today. It was such a privilege for us. Hanımlar, beyler, değerli panelistlerimiz için olsun kıymetli alkışlarınız. Onlara çok çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Ve alkışlarla